Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we talk about life's big stories, from breakups and breakdowns to icky secrets and happy endings. It's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey. I'm a writer and a parenting blogger at mumsdays.com. I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review because it basically means more people can find the podcast. And I also absolutely love hearing from you, so please do contact me through Instagram at mumsdays, MUMSDAYS, with any of your stories and any thoughts you might have on the episode or any questions. You can find all the details from this episode in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After. It's me, Hannah, and today I'm joined by Dan, who I know of as Dan with the tattoos.
Thanks.
What's your full name, Dan? Or the one you want to share on the podcast?
I go by Dan Zadeh. Surname's Dan Mohammed Zadeh. It was just always shortened down when I was younger, because 13-letter surnames are a little bit of a chore.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like when everyone else is doing something like, I don't know, something really short, and you're like...
I was always last away from the table in reception. You weren't allowed to leave until you'd wrote your name.
So already you're on a...
Yeah.
You were given a hard lot in life from day one.
Yeah, guess you could say that.
It's all right, you're overcoming it now. So we've chatted on and off for quite some time because we've been sea dipping friends.
Yeah.
And you were actually mentioned quite a bit on Craig's podcast.
Right, okay.
When he came on and was talking about, I guess how... because the group we were in was called the KFC, and how that kind of came about, and it seemed to all stem from you and a football group you started.
Yeah, so first things first, I'm a recovering addict, been clean and sober since April 10th, 2019. Big part of my life's been football. I love football, support Newcastle. I used to play various teams when I was younger. Same pattern though, that as the older I got, I say various teams, it was various teams because I would never show up. I'd still be out. And then
you get kicked out and start a new team?
I'd just meet them back at the bar after, and they realised that there was no point signing us on because I might play a handful of games a season, but other than that I was always just there for the piss-ups really. When I got clean and sober, I tried to go back to my old Sunday League team, but very quickly realised I didn't fit in, I didn't belong in that sort of scene anymore, because you finished training, you went back to the bar for a couple of pints, you finished the match, you went back to the bar for food and a couple of pints, and at the time I was in a treatment centre where part of my contract stated I couldn't go in any licensed premises, so I wasn't allowed to go into a bar. So I finished training and I just went home. I finished a match and I went home, so I didn't really feel like I was part of the team anymore.
Yeah. And
that was through no fault of the lads. It's just like I couldn't go in there, and to be honest, although I was a little bit, why is this clause in the contract? Poor me, I'm hard done by. It was the best thing for us, because the reality is, if I'd went in there and one of the lads had stuck a pint under my nose and said, go on, just have the one, then I would have been off and running again. I wouldn't be here today. Like, I would have lost my place in the treatment centre, and I would have still been back on that cycle. I might have got into recovery further down the line, but it was a blessing in disguise. So about a year into my recovery, I set up George Street Social FC. They were a football team that was primarily aimed at helping those in recovery from substance abuse, whether it be alcohol or drugs, gambling, but also helping those that just wanted to improve their mental health, and play for a team that wasn't focused around the pub culture of this country. And that's obviously where a lot of the lads come into it. I met Ross through that. Craig was playing for a different team and left them in the summer and messaged our page, and then I said, look, just get yourself down, see if you like it. He was planning on retiring. He got himself down to the presentation evening, had a bit of banter with the lads, and then before you know it, I talked him into signing up for us the following season. So yeah, that's how I knew Craig through football, but not knew. I knew of him, but not knew him properly. And then it was through that me and Craig become the friends that we are now.
And then did he get you into sea dipping off the back of that, or were you already doing it?
No, so there was a lad called Ross that plays for. He was a captain, and he'd seen the Ice Guys page and suggested that we go to try it as post-recovery after football, because we're all getting on, we're all in our 30s, we weren't one of the youngest teams in the league. We'd the next morning, the Sunday mornings after playing on a Saturday, it was like the walking wounded, like my body let us know that I was no longer a spring chicken when I used to get out of bed on a Sunday. So Ross suggested, and everybody was keen initially, but then 4 of us turned up: me, Ross, Craig, and Biscuit, which I think got mentioned in Craig's podcast as well. What me and Craig didn't know is that Ross and Biscuit had done some proper research in this and knew what to expect, and turned up in the dry robes. I think Craig turned up in his dressing gown, and I turned up.
He said he turned up with a plastic bag. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't much better. I had a pair of shorts on, a hoodie, and a minion towel to keep us warm.
And it was cold. I seem to recall it was like
November
winter when you went.
And it was snowing. Yeah, it was a weekend of snow, so it was a bit of a
rude awakening.
That's exactly the term I would look for. But when after we'd done it, like it took us hours to warm up, and I'm talking like I was watching the football later on. This was 8 o'clock in the morning. We went in. I'm watching the 4 o'clock game on the sofa on the Sunday, and I'm still sat there wrapped in layers at home, shivering. But for some reason, we decided to do it again the next week, and then the week after, and that's really how I got into it and realised that the benefits of it for your head were outweighed the negative, if you like, and that's if you can call it negative. Actually, I mean, it was to start with, but actually I quite like that feeling after now.
Yeah, and you do get used to it, and I think your body speeds up how it processes the cold anyway.
Yeah.
I should quickly say, so Ice Guys is it's volunteer-led group for men.
Yeah.
And you start the group with some breath work and kind of talking about how you feel. So it's a place for guys to talk about how they're feeling. You
start with breath work and then any celebrations. So if somebody's reached a milestone in either the sea dips, the cold water therapy, or any personal milestones, birthdays, recovery dates have now become a thing as well. But the talking about how you feel tends to take place in the sea, the North Sea, because doesn't matter what your story, everybody's got a story to go on the sea to start off with. I don't believe anybody just decides, you know what, I'm going to try cold water therapy because my life's great. Usually it's like something's gone wrong somewhere down the line, and it's a form of, right, okay, let's see if this can help. And it's guys from all different walks of life, probably a group of guys that you wouldn't ordinarily put together. And when you get in the sea, all of the bravado and ego you might have had when you were stood on sand sharp disappears, and you're talking on a personal level as opposed to a superficial level, which is really, really nice.
So you mentioned that you're a recovering addict. Do you want to talk us through your story?
I can do, yeah. I won't talk too much about the drink and drug side, because people that listen to this sort of stuff regularly will know how to drink and drug, but I will talk to you what led us down being an addict and sort of what led us into recovery. So I touched upon earlier the surname's Dan Zadeh. For those who are listening, you might realise that's not a typically English surname. However, Daniel is a typically English first name. My mum's from England, Gateshead. My dad's from Iran. When I was in school, I was racially bullied growing up. Slurs that weren't even relevant. Hair, black, which I'm clearly not. I won't say the word on the podcast, but the word beginning with P, which is often used, referred to corner shops. I was called quite a bit again. Iran and Pakistan are two completely different companies, so it wasn't even relevant, but it stuck and it hurt. And the results were like, it made us hate the person I was. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I didn't like school. I didn't like school for a number of reasons, but that was one of the main reasons. And I never really fit like I never really believed like I fit in anywhere. You know, I would get bullied, and then I'd try and make friends with the bullies. And try and, like, because I thought if I could make friends with them, then I wouldn't get bullied. All it made it didn't work like that. I still got bullied. All that happened is I looked stupid in the process. Because, you know, like the minority, if you like, the people I should have been friends with, I wasn't. I thought I was better than them, when really I wasn't. And, like, the end result was, like, I was getting bullied by bullies, but trying to befriend the bullies.
You basically were seeking an abusive relationship with your...
Top and bottom of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought if I could make friends with them, they'd like us.
If I can make them laugh,
stop,
if I can make them like me, then they won't be...
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And then you might get a bit of a tidbit that makes you go, oh, maybe I do fit in. But it's like you're reaching for scraps.
Top and bottom of it, yeah. I done a geographical, so I hated school. I thought that, you know, when I finished school, I was a bright lad. That's the worst part about it. Like, I had brains. I did finish with GCSEs. I was called into a meeting with the school and my parents, and pretty much told that the only reason they wouldn't chuck us out is because I was like in the top sets. So if
Damn it, he's really good for our stats, but
Yeah.
we don't want him here.
top and bottom of it is like, it's like, yeah, if we kick this kid out, then we've got to explain how we can't manage somebody that's clearly got the intelligence. So that sort of gave me the upper hand, if you like, because I knew from that meeting they weren't getting rid of me, so I could do whatever I want, attend whenever I wanted, and be as big a dick if I wanted.
Grades.
And they weren't going to kick us out because they needed me for their stats at the end of the year. So I sort of, that gave us like the leeway I needed to do what I needed to do to survive in school, and I decided that I'd go to college. But the problem was never school, the problem was never bullies. The problem was none of that, the problem was always me. Like, I couldn't accept who I was, so it didn't matter where I went, who I spoke to, what I'd done, until I learned to accept myself for who I was. Then the problems were always going to follow themselves around.
That's like giving me full body goosebumps. I'm like, of course, like, how can you ever belong if you don't feel like you belong?
Yeah.
And like, it's very different. I'm, you know, a white girl that grew up in Britain, but we moved a lot.
Yeah.
I grew up in inner city Birmingham at one point, arrived there with a posh accent and, you know, didn't shave my legs or do all the things you're meant to do at whatever age it was, 11. So I get the feeling, even though it's very different, of just feeling like you don't belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And then being like, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to fit in. And
Yeah.
that doesn't fucking work either.
So you try everything. Like, you try everything to fit in, other than do the work on yourself. Because I think that's the hardest bit, isn't it? Like, it's the scariest bit. Like, I never wanted to admit I had a problem. Obviously, one of the good things, if you like, which I never complained about too much about the dad being from Iran, was the facial hair. That meant at the age of 15, 16, I was getting served in
You're
bars.
getting really decent facial hair. Not so much on top of your head, but plenty on the face.
But it did mean I could get served at an early age, so college very quickly became an excuse just to go down and get hammered, because I could get served. I used to go to the snooker club across the road, drink in there, then go along the lower fell where I was from, and I was getting served in the bars from the age of 16.
And who were you drinking with?
So with it being college, it wasn't just necessarily people my age in the class. Like, it's not like if you went to sixth form, I'd be same level. Like, there were people that were a year or two older than us that would come as well. So I'd drink with them. My best mate at the time, or one of my best mates at the time, used to work in one of the bars on the Fell, and he was a couple of years older than us. And at one point, it got to the point where I'd ring him and be like, right, shall we just meet for break time? So we'd go down, we'd meet for break time outside the college gates, like, get a mark, and then go straight on the lash. Yeah, but it was the part, I guess the best way to describe it is I was a party boy that never wanted the party to stop, because when I was at a party, I could put this mask on.
Yeah.
I could be somebody else, somebody I thought I liked, somebody I thought everybody else liked.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to fit in. You know, I found drugs at an early age. Cocaine was my drug of choice. And alcohol and cocaine mixed together were great, because it meant that I no longer had a bedtime. Like, if I went out and I was just drinking, then chances are I'd wake up the next morning thinking, how the fuck did I get home last night? No idea how I got home. Check the call log, get the dreaded, that fear inside you when you see all the people. Quite a lot of the time I'd go downstairs and, like, I'd have annoyed, pissed off, angry mum and dad, and I couldn't for the life of us figure out why. And then they'd be like, you got us out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning to come get you from town. I was like, so that's how I got home. Yeah.
Whoops.
Like, before the drugs took, before I was on the drugs, every weekend it would be like, sometimes go home, and if I hadn't took any food home, I'd go upstairs and I'd just be like, Mum, make us some food. And I had no recollection of doing this, but I knew she would, because there was one time I came in and tried to put the chip pan on and fell asleep on the sofa and nearly set the house on fire. So because of that, I knew if I got in and asked her, she would do it.
Yeah, better than you setting the house on fire.
Yeah. See, my mum didn't like that, but I think in the later years that followed, if you offered her that over what followed, she would have probably snapped your hand off for it because, like I say, I found cocaine at the age of 17 and I didn't hammer it straight away. But from about the age of 18, 19, I was on it every weekend. And it might have started in small sums, but then come the end, I was sticking up to £1,000 a week up my nose.
Wow, how did you pay for that?
So it comes back to always being good at what I've done and having intelligence levels. One, I've always lived at home. Like, selfishly, I've seen it as not in a relationship. That would mean all the bills on my own. Why am I going to move out? Like,
And your mum will make you chips in the middle of the night?
well, I wasn't going home to get them made in the middle of the night come the end, but it was more like I'm only here like during the week for 2 or 3 days, really. Like 4 nights of the push, because once a weekend comes, I'm out anyway. So it didn't really matter. I kind of used the house as a hotel, and that's quite sad to say that. But like, I go home for showers on a weekend. Like, although I was an addict, I like to think of myself as a bit of a clean addict. I couldn't stand being in the same clothes like all weekend, to the point I once went out and took a carrier bag of clothes to the pub I was going to, and the next morning everyone was like, "Where are you disappearing to?" And I disappeared to the disabled toilet with my bag of clothes. Had a like sink
Freshen
wash,
up.
deodorant,
Off your face.
changed tops, and came back and continued like as if nothing was normal, as like nothing was wrong for another 2 days, as if it was normal behaviour. So yeah, so I used the house like a hotel. I'd like go in, I'd pop in, and again, my mum would like that sort of to an extent, because it was like, well, at least he's still alive. I know he's still alive. He's been home to get changed, and that's sad. That like my mum used to get happy when I come home to get changed, and that just because she knew I was alive. All through me addiction, or like sort of, I guess I was like a yo-yo, a seesaw. So I'd go out on a Thursday, Friday, come home Sunday night, Monday. I'd be home briefly in between, but never like for sustained periods of time. But during the week, I'd run or I'd play football. So that would be like me head would get like this, brung back down, if you like. I was doing something semi what's the word, semi healthy for myself in between.
Yeah.
To try and keep my head right. I'd done my knee back in 2015 after the Great North Run. I was on crutches for 6 months, so I lost my crutch, lost me running, and that's really when I then had no. I was off work for a while, and I had no come home time, if you like, and it went from like pretty much Thursday to Tuesdays and having the odd day off just to let the body recover when it was absolutely battered, and then going again. And then ever since that point, work in between was sporadic. Like, I'd go back, I'd be there for maybe a month, 2 months, do enough in that time. I used to work sales to bank a decent bonus, but then the phased return would run out, and I was going back to full-time hours, and I wasn't about that lifestyle, to be honest. So
I'm not here for 9 to 5.
it was back on the sick and back to drinking a jug, and these mental breakdowns are what I call them. So I do like, I do dry January, or I do Stoptober, or I go...
Just something to prove that you're not an addict.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I can give up when I want.
Yeah, but then for the full 30 days or 31 days, however long the month was I was doing, I'd sit there and I'd be like a dry drunk. So I'd still have all the thoughts, feelings, processes behind it that I would have when I was drinking and using, but I wouldn't have the coping mechanism of the drinking or the using. So I'd just be miserable. I would be miserable. And then any money I'd saved during that period off would get blue on the first weekend back out, and I'd be like, oh well, back to square one. That was nice.
Yeah, but at least I proved I could do it.
But at least it gets people off my back for a while.
Yeah.
I guess what brought us into recovery, I touched up on my running, so I always thought I was a good runner. And in February 2019, I went down Blackpool to run a half marathon. Hadn't ran since the Great North Run the year before. I'd pretty much been on a 6-month session. That was the February. The Great North Run was the September the year before. And inevitably, I pulled up injured around the 9-mile mark. And my head just went. So I went back to the pub, and my head was like, you're a failure. Like, what have you got left in life? You can't even run anymore. That used to be the one thing that would help save you. and now you can't even do that. I'd just been paid the day before, been paid the best part of £3,000, and I spent the next 2 days. Well, first and foremost, we're stopping over there. Me and my two friends that went down with were stopping over there for the Sunday night, and we're going for a night out. And then we were meant to travel back up on the Monday. I wandered off from them on the night out, found some undesirable characters, and spent the next 2 days going between a bar called The Walkabout, an Australian chain bar, and a crack house.
Oh, nice.
And by the Tuesday, pretty much the £3,000 was gone. I stood on the end of the pier with a bottle of vodka, looking over the edge, thinking, I can't do this anymore, it's time to go. But then I'm an overthinker. And I remember watching a documentary, and this is what came into my head and probably saved my life. Being an overthinker saved my life from being truthful. And it was like, remember in that documentary you watched where they said when drowning's a physically painful way to go because of what it does to your body when you're actually physically drowning. So you're already hurting enough mentally. Do you really want to hurt physically when you die as well? And what if somebody saves you and you don't, and then you just end up through that pain for nothing? Now, we'll best get back to Newcastle and we'll think of a new plan when we get back home.
We're not going this way.
Yeah. So I rang my dad and I said, hey, Dad, you're going to have to come pick us up off. And he laughed and he said, whereabouts in town are you, son? Because like I touched upon earlier, I was used to these rescue calls. My dad's 73 now. Well, he'll be 73 this year. So he's not exactly a young man. Sorry, Dad. But his words were, you're taking a piss, so my cancer treatment starts today.
Fuck.
So I had like this...
And you were on Brighton Pier or something?
Blackpool.
Blackpool Pier.
I had this moment of clarity. Like, what are you fucking doing, you absolute tit? Like, how sort yourself out. So I was like, right, okay, no worries. I'll get myself home. Don't worry about it. I put the phone down. Checked the bank balance, realised I didn't really have much money left. Checked the train times and realised that the train wasn't till 7 o'clock and this was like dinner time. So I'd done what every good addict does and manipulated the situation with my younger sister to get her to sort us the train tickets.
Nice.
Because that money I had in my bank was my drink and drugs money till 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I did, and she sorted it, and I got home and she picked us up from Central Station. And I got in the car and I was still in the same clothes that I went out in on Sunday. By this point my skin was grey yellow, I stunk, I was sweating. And she just looked at us and just said, I just feel sorry for you, what have you become? And she got us home and I went to bed, and then I got up the next morning and my mum came in my room and she was like, again, she wanted to, she came into bollockers, top and bottom of it, and then she seen us sat on the end of the bed rocking backwards and forwards, just saying, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to die. So we got the crisis team out, but I was clever, as addicts are, I was to manipulate situations, and I knew as long as I didn't say anything incriminating while the crisis team were there, they couldn't section us, because it would just be like what my mum was saying. And like the cogs had started to turn, the fog had started to clear, and I realised if I got sectioned, I wasn't having any drink or drugs.
Yeah.
So my mum was like, I said to my mum, if you let these take me in, like, that's me and you done, I'll never speak to you again. Because I knew my mum's love for us, and she was like, I'll look after him, I'll sit around the clock, watch him 24/7, do whatever it takes. And off the crisis team went, and I'd done the whole thing of coming off the drink and drugs for a month, locked myself in my room for 2 weeks, didn't really speak to anybody. Then the 2 weeks after that started to running naturally because I didn't have a load of shit in my body. My brain was starting to clear and I was starting to do stuff healthy for it, you know. I started to feel better about it. In the meantime, I turned 30 and I was like, missed my 30th birthday here. So I liked Cheltenham, I'd like the horse racing. And I used to go out every Friday, every Gold Cup day, the Friday of it. I used to go out with my mates on the drink for a session, but I bet, and I'd use the horses as an excuse for that, for the session. And the Gold Cup came, and so I went and met my mate, and I went out and got home. Left the bar at last orders and got home. Hadn't had loads of coke, and took a couple of sleeping tablets and woke up the next morning and was like, that was a successful night, that. I went out, I came home the same night, I can do it. Football was cancelled, so I went out for the match, and again the same thing happened. By this point, the addiction in us is already starting to work. It's like I've got him right where I want him now, because he's done 2 nights where he's only had a couple of bags of coke each night. He's came home. He's ignoring the fact he's having to take sleeping tablets to get to sleep because that's normal behaviour, and he thinks he's got it sussed. So I went out for a meal for my 30th birthday. It was St Patrick's Day on the Sunday. Met my mates in the local, and the idea was we'll watch the late game, then go. The table was booked for 6. The late game was 4. We'll watch the late game, then go for the curry at 6. What actually happened was we turned up at 4, missed the curry. They went home at the end of the night in town, and I stayed on the session till I think it was a Wednesday. I turned up at my dad's. Obviously, I burnt my bridges with my mum. Then by text, I made sure of that. So I turned up at my dad's and it was a mess. And my mum came up on the Thursday, and I think it was like meant to be an intervention moment. And it was like, what's going on? And I just remember being on my hands and my knees in my dad's front room, begging the both of them to help us end my life. I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. Like, I want to die. Like, help us die.
Which bit of you do you think that came from?
So I knew I couldn't live the way I was living anymore.
So there's obviously the addiction bit of the brain that's like, it's a motorway, this is what you need to do.
Yes.
It's like there's a tiny voice somewhere in there that's like, I've got no control.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't carry on the way I was going. It was too painful. That's why I drank and drugged. You know, like, I hated myself. I hated the person I'd become. I hated everything about us, and I hated what I was doing to my loved ones more than anything, but I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
So I wanted the easy way out, didn't I? That's the top and bottom of it, because I didn't believe it was possible to get clean and sober, and I didn't believe it was possible to live a life without drink or drugs. My life revolved around drink or drugs. If I was going to play football, I wasn't really going to play football. I was going for the session that came after it. If I was going to the pictures with somebody, I wasn't really going to the pictures. I was going for a drink, and the pictures were just 90 minutes in between I was going to have to put up with. If I was going for food, I wasn't really going for food. I was going to order something, push it around my plate, but I was going for the drinks that would come after it.
Yeah.
Everything in life revolved around drinking drugs. I didn't get a pay packet from work. I got drinking drugs. Like, I used credit cards to buy clothes and meals, because that wages, dealers wouldn't accept credit cards.
Yeah.
So them wages were my drinking drugs money. So I looked at stuff, and that's that many nights out, or that's that many sessions. Every focus was drinking drug related. So yeah, when you look at it like that, like, I couldn't see a life without the drinking drugs.
Yeah, like what is there?
Yeah.
If your entire life is that, then what is there? And what's
I didn't
the
have
alternative?
an identity. My identity was this. I used to call myself the King of the Fell. This larger-than-life character, this mask that I would wear. I'd make an absolute tit of myself and believe that people liked us. The reality is people used to laugh at us, not with us, because I was a tit. But at least when I was being that person, it allowed us to take away from what a shit show my own life was. The shit show I'd created, granted, but a shit show nonetheless.
So you got into recovery. How did that process work?
So, my sisters, first and foremost, my younger sister Yasmin, she was prepared to drop out of uni and use all of her loans, and my dad was prepared to take out all of the money he could off any credit card to send us to a private private rehab, not private uni, because I think they quite priced it up, and they were looking at about 12.5 grand.
It's a lot.
For 28 days. By chance, my mum rang Gated Recovery Partnership. They are the drug and alcohol services in Gated, where I'm from, and the person on the other end of the phone said, look, we've got this like treatment centre thing starting. It's like a day hab, and it's due to go live. Come down tomorrow, we'll have a talk about it. This was on the Thursday still when I was saying this, because, sorry, I'll go back to my mum. What made them start looking for it was like, it was a deal I made with my mum, and this deal is probably the most messed up deal, but it sounds perfectly logical in my head. So my mum had said when I was on the floor crying, she said, like, look, do you not think you need help, son? But as you know, Hannah, I'm a little bit of a know-it-all. Always right, never wrong.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah. So, and that was the same back then, but on steroids.
On coke?
Yeah, obviously. Well, yeah. So my mum said, like, look, son, do you not think you need some help? And I was like, well, no shit, but, like, I've tried before, it won't work. And she said, well, will you at least try? So I thought I was coming up with a foolproof way to allow myself to drink and drug myself to death by providing her with an ultimate deal she would never accept. I said, right, I tell you what, I'll do anything you want. Any treatment centre, anything like that, I'll do. But when it doesn't work, because it won't, I know it won't, you've got to let us drink and drug myself to death. And I thought, I've got you here. That's what my addiction was telling us. You've got to hear. She's literally split seconds later, she said, deal.
You're going to do it anyway.
Her words were, yeah, well, what choice do I have, son? If I don't make the deal, you're going to do it anyway. And at least this chance I might get my baby boy back. She still calls us a baby boy. Yeah.
It's because you've got a baby smooth head.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So that's how the looking for rehabs came about. And when they mentioned this one was free. So they said, like, look, will you...
Because the assumption is if you're going to go to rehab, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands, but there are options.
There are. I was very, very lucky. Timing, the way it happened, and just I fell into it. That's the top and bottom of it. It was like the perfect shitstorm with a rainbow at the end and a pot of gold. The pot of gold being the recovery I've got out of it today. So yeah, so when we went down, I didn't really talk much because I was still absolutely battered from the drink and drugs. There was an information session on the Monday which he convinced us to go to. And I'd said to me mum and dad were like, look, let's go to this, we'll pack your bags. So if on Monday you don't like the information session, you don't like what you hear about this one, then we'll take you down. I think it was Essex, off the top of my head, the private rehab I was going to go to. We'll take you down there, we'll drive you straight down after. We've already spoke to them on the phone, they've got a place for you if you want. They can keep it till Monday. So I was like, right, okay, deal. I sort of got through the weekend, but Yasmin, the youngest sister, it was her birthday and I kind of ruined it. Old habits die hard. We went out for a meal. And I'd played football in the morning and went back to the bar and had no intention of having a pint, but still found myself sat there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By this point, I was off my face, and I went down and pushed my food around the plate for the whole of a birthday. Then when we left, I was like, right, so who's coming to the pub? They're like, nobody, we're going home. I said, well, I'm going to the pub. I'll see you at last orders. It was actually 10:30 in the morning when I got in, and the information session was at 11. So you can imagine the fume on my mum. She pushed us in the shower, said, sort yourself out, and dropped us off at this information session at 11. By that point, the come down had started to kick in. And when she asked how it went, truthfully, I didn't take a lot from the information session.
Funny that.
But I took that it was free. And although I was an absolute arsehole and a dickhead, I didn't believe it was going to work, and I still had a little bit of a conscience. So I said, look, I want to give this one a go. Because the reality is I didn't think it was going to work.
I was going to say, were you thinking in the back of your mind, it's better if I'm here, then I'll still be able to drink and drug, rather than being in a rehab centre?
So it was one of the few moments of clarity I had in my head. In that, at least if this doesn't work, you haven't cost your sister a place at uni and you haven't cost your dad thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
So I was an arsehole, I was a dickhead, a self-centred arsehole. Everything was always about me, but that was one of the few rare moments of clarity that, like, it was like, because I genuinely didn't believe it was going to work, but I committed to giving it a go. I was like, I might as well try the free one, because then at least I'm not putting the family through any extra cost at the same time.
Yeah.
And then sort of the rest is history, I guess, as I say. There was a lot of work done on myself in rehab through 12-step fellowships.
Was it a residential?
No, so I lived at home, but it was like a full-time job. I'd attend between Monday to Friday between 9 and 5. And then they put activities on for you at weekend. Although it was Gates of Recovery Partnership, it was a charity called Recovery Connections that ran it. I've got a lot of fond memories of those I touched upon. They give us my life back, really. I still keep in touch with them now and then. I still go in now and then to share my story with new rehab cohorts. And I can't thank them enough.
I mean, from what you've said, they must have made a massive difference very early on to have managed to convince you to stick with it.
So I remember going in and like I say, I had them. If you think my ego or my bravado was bad now, you should have seen us back when I was drinking and using. It was a lot worse. And I went in, and if any, like the building it's in is opposite a Wetherspoons on Gated High Street, so it's not the most glamorous of locations. But I remember going in the early days with this sort of swagger about us, saying, "Look, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do what's needed. I'm going to learn how to drink properly, and I'm going to go over there at the end of these 6 months and have a few pints to celebrate, because I'll know how to drink properly."
Yeah, I'll be able to drink in moderation then.
What was told from us pretty much was that I got laughed at and got told, like, if once you realise the damage you've done to not only yourself, your family, your friends, your finance, your career, everything around you, still think it's a good idea to put a drink in for you after these 6 months, then good luck to you, because there's no helping you. Like, and even if you did go back out there, you'll never enjoy it, because now you can't plead ignorance. You know the damage you're doing, and you're choosing to do it. And that's always stuck with us. Yeah, it's always stuck with us.
And that's 5 years ago.
Be 5 years in April. Yeah.
Amazing. I guess I want to know, firstly, I guess, how has your life changed now? Because it's 5 years is quite a long time.
So, the kid that never liked school, college, whatever, I'm currently in my last year of uni. I fully qualified as a counsellor last year. I was in schools on placement, helping to counsel students, and I'm looking to become a counsellor full time. I'm not sure. It's quite mentally taxing.
Yeah.
But certainly I do want to go into counselling when I'm finished this year. One of the other things I also want to get into is going into schools. I don't believe enough work's done around addiction, so if I can get into schools and help educate around addiction, then I'd like to. I'm not naive enough to think I'll stop everybody from falling down the trap, but if it makes a difference in just one, then it'll have been worthwhile. Even if it just makes somebody think, when they go to take the first drug, do I really want to do this? I remember that conversation I had with that person that came in that time. Do I really want to go down that route? Then it'll have been worthwhile.
Yeah.
I love me fitness, me running.
You certainly do.
Yeah. Cold water therapy. I've got a little bit lazy, I'm not going to lie. Obviously living in Gated, it's a 20-minute drive to Ivor Beach, so...
And it's not warm,
yeah.
And the sunsets on... I mean, they're beautiful, but they're also in the middle of the day now.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a pod in my garden, so I still do it every day. It's just I've lost the social side of it, if you like, which that was one of the best things about the cold water therapy, and I am aware of that, because one of the good things recovery's given us today is self-awareness. So I am aware that sort of doing this, although it's still good for my head, I'm not getting the full benefits of it, because I'm not getting the connection side, and it is something I am keen to push myself back to. I guess the biggest change is I can be relied upon. My friends have all got kids, and like the kids love us. They love us being part of life, and my friends love it when I go around to see them. You know, if I was still drinking and using, I wouldn't be trusted near a kid.
No.
That's a sad reality of it. I wouldn't have the connections I do with the kids. I wouldn't be able to make the memories I do with them. I don't have kids myself, so I guess I sort of live that through my friends' kids.
Oh, you're really young.
Youngish, but thank you. But the biggest one is peace of mind, and I say peace of mind for myself, but not just for myself. You know, just like addiction destroyed the lives of others, recovery's helping building the lives and them back up. I've got relationships with my sisters. I never used to. Truth be told, there was only one sister I used to bother with, and it was one that drove, because she was a lift. And that's sad, and the other two probably will watch that, but they know that. But now I've got better relationships than I've ever had with them. There's still work to be done on some of them. I'm not naive enough to think that they're 100%. There is still work to be done, but they're a lot better than what they were. My mum and my dad have got the son back. My dad's proud as punch. My sisters all went to university. I never. I'm now going through university. And I know how that makes him feel. And my mum summed it up a couple of years ago when she's got health problems, and she'll hear this for mentioning it because she hates to be looked up on as poor mum, but the reality is she isn't in the best of health, and she sat us down and we had a conversation because I can speak to them now. It's uncomfortable for us, and I get the ick, if you like, when I have to sit and talk about my feelings with my mum and dad. But she said to us, like, son, I'm so glad that you found recovery when you did, because if I had all these health problems when you were drinking and using, and you were still drinking and using, you'd have put us in an early grave. But today I don't have to worry about you. Last year I went away on holiday with Trev. Yeah. It was my first holiday in recovery. I couldn't have asked of anyone better to spend it with. But she didn't have to worry.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, when I used to go on stag do's and stuff like that, she wouldn't sleep for the full 4 days I was away.
Neither would you.
She would, yeah, 2 different reasons. So, but she'd be getting, like, she'd message us constantly to see if I was alive. This time it was to see if I was having a nice time.
Yeah.
Completely different.
That's amazing. So what's the future looking like for you now? What are the hopes? What are the ambitions?
Like I say, I'd like to go into, I do want to counsel. I want to counsel within schools. I would love to go into addiction counselling, but the reality is it's firefighting. The drug and alcohol services in this country are massively underfunded. A lot of them don't have counsellors because of the underfunding. So if I can't do it at that level, what I'd like to do is go into schools and counsel in schools, because I believe that a lot of addiction comes from trauma suffered within childhood. And if I can get in school level and help with the mental health of kids in schools, then hopefully they won't have to walk down the path that I had to walk down. Mm-hmm. I'm not ashamed of my past. I've got a lot of guilt around things I've done, but I've got no shame. And the reason I say I've got no shame is because guilt and shame are 2 different things. I can feel guilty about the actions in my past, but I only feel shame these days if I still behave like that. I can feel guilty about that, but the shame is no longer there because I'm no longer that person.
Yeah.
I'm no longer trying to lie, cheat and steal from everybody. I might not have stole physical things from people. I might not have stole money from the family. I might not have stole physical possessions and sold them from them. But what I've done was far worse. I stole a peace of mind and then never get that back. So I'm like I say, I want to go into that primarily. I want to help others. I used to be a salesperson. I didn't care about helping others. I cared about making as much money out of you as I could by making you believe you were getting the best deal possible. That's why I left sales, because when I got clean sober, it rubbed up against us the wrong way. I was like, I can't be...
Now you can sell what you believe in.
Yeah.
And what's authentic
for
you and truthful. So you've got the skills to sell, but you just need to sell the right thing. The thing you believe in.
Exactly that. And then, like, I love to see others do well today. I never used to. I used to hate it. Because I was always comparing myself. And I'd never compare myself to anybody worse.
Yeah.
I'd always compare myself to somebody better.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it was a vicious circle. If I compared myself to somebody better and I wasn't as good as that person, then I was a failure. I could drink on failure. I loved failure.
Yeah, failure's great.
Yeah. It's a bit harder to drink on emotions. It's pride and stuff like that. So, yeah. So yeah, I just like to see others do well. We've got a friendship group. A lot of the lads.
You found the place that you belong.
Yeah, top and bottom of it. Yeah, we're all signed up to do the Edinburgh Marathon. It's going to be our first road marathon race together. We're all going up the night before, stopping the same place. It's going to be pretty special. Nice.
And haven't you got you've got 5 races that you're doing this year, 1 for each year in recovery?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and raise some money for Recovery Connections, because of the essentially they are the charity that gives me life back. You know, I know I had to do the work, but the reality is, if they hadn't showed us what was possible, then I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So starting with the Ibiza half marathon, it's going to be quite nice setting. It's 3 days after I turn 5. That's the 13th of April. Then I go to Morocco, Marrakesh, to climb the highest mountain in North Africa with one of the lads, Sean. He's doing it for his own reasons. He's doing it to raise money for Maggie's, I believe, cancer charity, which his wife's been affected by.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it for my recovery. But climbing Mount Tukbal, that's over 3 days. I think that's 9th to 12th of May. We've then got the Edinburgh Marathon. It's the 27th of May. 2 weeks later, I then go to Carlisle to do the Wall, a 70-mile ultra race from Carlisle to Newcastle.
Wow.
And then the plan is to finish strong. I think it's the 28th of September with the Pilgrim Ultra Marathon, which is a 100-mile ultra marathon in 30 hours. So whereas I used to take great pleasure from pushing the body to its absolute limits and seeing what was possible with drinking drugs, how long can I last on a session this time? Today, I guess I still do that, but it's with more healthy things to an extent, in the form of exercise, in the form of things that are good for my mind.
Brill. Well, we'll make sure that we share the link to your, if you got like a raising money page.
Yeah, so Recovery Connections, I've been in touch with them last week. They're just in the process of setting it up enough for us.
Great.
And then once I've got that, I'll share
Send
the
it
link
over,
to go
and then
live.
Yeah,
Appreciate
we'll share
that.
it when we're ready. Oh, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much
Dan,
for
I
having
really
us.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you in the sea.
See you in the sea.
All right then, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Happily Ever After with me, Hannah Harvey. It would be wonderful if you could leave a review and subscribe. And of course, if you have a friend who might enjoy this episode, please do pass it on. For anything else, you can get in touch with me either through Instagram @mumsdays or my website mumsdays.com.